Hey there. Somebody was asking on Discord how you can make a situation where you have like a button tied to a specific thing without having to set up like, all right, button one dot subscribe goes to asset one dot whatever. Like, they don't want to have to make 3 functions and have 3 subscribes for 3 different things. They want it so that you have the button and it moves the thing or does whatever with, I don't know what they're actually doing with the thing. But in my situation, this is kind of how I set up tycoon type stuff. So let's say we're buying this burger, you hit E and then it moves the asset up. And so normally like that would be like deep underground, and then you move it up to its resting spot and there you go. This guy, you press E, he moves up. And if you look in the top left, you can see, oh, okay, this is button 0, and this prop was already used. This was button 1, this prop was already used. And then button 3, boom. Or well, I guess button 2, it's indexed. You know how programming works, you're here. Button 2, prop already used. So how does all that work? All of that stuff lives in this guy. Beep, boop, 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 boop. Let's go over to the code. Well, first, actually, let's go in Unreal. Hey, look at us. So we got this guy, right? And in here, let's just close that down. We got props, and we have an array of props with 3 elements in it. Index 1, we have a button, we have an art asset, and we have a cost. Here, I'm not using the cost, but if this were a tycoon, I would. But, you know, that gives you an idea of, like, you can add in a bunch of attributes for each like grouping, right? We want to group this button to this thing, right? That's the idea. We want a container that holds these 2 together, but there might be other things that we need to hold with it, right? So that's where you can pass in things like cost or, you know, a name for the asset or something. I don't know, whatever you're trying to do. Maybe this asset's not supposed to move. Maybe it's supposed to disappear when interacted with, and you can set that kind of thing up in here. So how does these work? These are set as just any Fortnite art here as a child of an empty blueprint. So I make a little blueprint, he's here, and then his child is the Durr Burger. So asset, or the blueprint, and then we have the burger as a child. To make a empty blueprint like this, you just open up your what's this called? The content tab thing, content drawer, and right click in here, go to blueprint class, and then hit building prop. All right, when you hit building prop, you get just one of these guys. It says blueprint class. You can name it whatever you want. I name mine something like, you can see here from the last time I tried recording this, art holder, or over here, empty holder 2. It's all the same thing. So, or prop spawner. You just drag one of those into the world, add this thing as a child to it. Bada bing, bada boom. Right? So like this guy, he's child of art asset to move to. To get him there, you can just right click, attach to, and then you type in like the name, and you can see it's already attached to number 2, so you can't put him there. He already lives there. Anyway, let's hop into the code. Boop, 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 boop. All right. So in here, what do we got? It's not that much. It is not that much. It can almost fit entirely on the screen. In fact, it kind of can. I just made the text bigger because video. There, it's all on the screen, all at the same time. Rad. So, what do we got? We got a bunch of usings. Cool. Nobody really cares about those. And then we got prop objects. What's prop objects? Prop objects is a class, concrete, that is just like a happy little container, a little helper container that contains everything related to that specific prop that I want to do, right? So here we have an editable with the button device, another editable with the art asset of creative prop, because that's what those empty blueprints are. And then an editable for the cost. And then we also have just this variable in here called already used. It probably should be like is already used, right? I mean, that's fine. You understand. Already used, which is logic, like a Boolean, and we're saying false. We're saying, hey, right now, this guy hasn't been used yet. So that is all its own little class that lives here. But if we double click this guy, we'll see down here, oh, that gets highlighted. We're making an array of this class, and we're naming it props. And it's editable. And so that is why in here we see, okay, we have props, right? Our array name here, props. And then in there we have those 3 editables from this helper class up here, right? We got the button, we got art asset, we got cost. All 3 of those right in here. And all of those are like, it's a group. They all work together. So what we're going to be doing with that is we make our little array, and then in onBegin, we want to be able to subscribe to each of those buttons without like a huge hubbub about it, right? We don't want to have to make like a ton of code. This isn't a ton of code. This is 4 lines to be able to do the stuff for each of those buttons, kind of. I mean, for, you know, in the onBegin, there's like another 10 lines down here. So onBegin, we have this variable button ID, which is just a counter that we're going to be using to say which index of the array we're working with. Okay, so for prop in props, so for each prop, for each single item or container, I guess, in this array called props, we're going to subscribe to the button interacted event. So here, this is kind of, this line looks a little scary. I'll be real with you. It looks a tiny bit scary because there's like a prop.button.interact, like there's a lot going on here. Comma button ID. What's all this? What's a subscribe agent? So subscribe agent, Graham has a great video where he goes into this, but the skinny of it is we can use some fancy magic to be able to pass in extra variables, extra flags, extra stuff into a subscribe where normally it would only kick out an agent, right? Normally we would have button.interacted with event.subscribe, and then we say what function we want it to go to. No, here we're doing subscribe agent, and we get that by adding all this goodies into a file in your code. This all comes from a thread on the forums that I found, and it blew my mind. It was great. He's got a bunch of information, or she, I don't know who made it, but this is the thread. And what we're doing here is it basically, I'll be real, I don't understand the magic here, but I know how to use it. We're gonna take, instead of a normal subscribe, we're saying subscribe agent, and in the output of that we get an agent and we get extra data, and they don't really care fully what type that extra data is. They're saying it's a tuple or a tuple or what, I don't know, man. But for our purposes today, what that means is you get to pass a handy little variable from here, like from this line, into your interacted with event. Okay, So prop.button, prop because it's the one object that we're dealing with, our one container. This is our container name for this loop, is prop.button because that's what we named it up here. Interacted with event because it is a button device. Subscribe agent. I just went on a tirade about that. On button pressed, the name of the function that we're going to be doing, and then button ID is my extra data that I'm passing in. And again, button ID is just a essentially which index of the array that we're going to be passing in here. So here we have button ID equals 0. After we subscribe to it in this for loop, we're going to increment that button ID by 1, so that the next time it goes through, it's going to be it would pass in number 1. And then the next time it would pass in number 2, and so on and so on and so on. But it ties that to the subscribe, so that anytime that this button gets pressed, this specific button gets pressed, it'll pass in whatever the current ID was when passing that in. So let's get into on button pressed. On button pressed, we have an agent, that's normal. We're used to that. And then we get our button ID. That's our extra data that we're passing in. We're gonna just have a happy little print file or print helper here saying which button ID got pressed. And then we're gonna go into a little if statement. We're saying if this prop, which is of the array props and array index of button ID, right? So we're saying, hey, does this exist? If so, we're gonna call it this prop. Okay. If this prop dot already used equals true, then we already used it. We're not going to do anything. If it's false, so else, we're going to spawn move prop up. Okay. So what is prop dot already used? Right? We've used prop dot button. This prop dot already used. In this situation, this prop is what we're calling this specific container. This prop dot already used up here in our prop containers. I really hope I'm using the verbiage right here. I'm not. It's fine. You're following along. You're doing a great job. I'm proud of you. This prop dot already used. We're saying already used because that was one of the variables that we created for this class, for this little happy little bucket that we're using to keep all of our stuff together. So if it's true, it's used. If it's false, we're gonna run the function. So else move prop up, and we're gonna pass in this prop dot art asset, and then we're gonna flag it as true. Okay, so this prop dot art asset, again, we're going up here, baby. Art asset is the creative prop that we're using to, like, that's connected with this button. So that's that part. Move prop up, pretty simple. We're passing in this prop dot art asset. Art asset is a creative prop. So we have our prop that we're passing in. That's a type creative prop. I'm going to say, hey, let's grab the transform of the prop. So original position is a vector 3 of prop, which is what we're passing in, the art asset prop, dot get transform, dot translation. So that's just going to be your XYZ, like, actual translation in the world. It's not going to include your rotation. It's not going to include your scale. But for teleport to, we need to feed it the rotation as well. And we want to, like, offset the positioning here, right? So here I'm saying, okay, the new position is a vector 3 that is equal to a vector 3 that has x of the original positions x, original positions y, but I want to bump it 500 units straight up. Boom. 500 units straight up. And then we're going to teleport it. Just, this is the if prop dot teleport to the new position right here. But then we don't have the rotation, so we're just going to say, hey, get the rotation of the thing that we're already passing in. That's the whole thing. That's the code. So I really hope that you can see how this is useful. Being able to group this sort of stuff together in one happy little bucket, and then also like it's super scalable, right? Like I can create 1,000 of these and it'll be, you know, an afternoon of agony entering each of those in accurately here. But we don't have to like replicate that agony in the code. The code is handled, baby. The code is handled. And so you can use this to do all kinds of stuff. When you start like being able to use these little containers, then you get to think about things a little bit differently. I really hope this helped. And I don't know, make cool stuff, dude. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Tell your mom you love him. All right. Bye. I don't know how. I'm from the Midwest. I don't know how to end a conversation.